Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Consumer Goods Forum's webinar on the soy sourcing guidelines. My name is Hugo Byrnes. I'm the VP for Product Integrity at Royal Ahold in the Netherlands. In the hope that you can all hear me, we would like to start this webinar on these guidelines and go to our first slide. Which contains some housekeeping rules that we want to apply. So first of all, even though the sound at this moment is actually very good, if you're not speaking, please put your phone on mute because otherwise we'll get a lot of echo. But if you want to ask questions, by all means feel free to do so. If it's about an explanation, if it's more, let's say, an overall questions, I would appreciate if you ask them at the end of the webinar. Maximum duration of the webinar will be 60 minutes. It will be recorded, and there's also the possibility to send questions by email, and you can see the email address on your screens. But before we go to the actual webinar, there is always the attention that needs to be drawn to the antitrust cautions. It's on your screen now. Please take a moment to read it and ask any questions that you may have. And if there are no questions, I assume you all acknowledge the statement. Thank you. Today's agenda is that I'll be your speaker and take you through, first of all, an introduction to the Consumer Goods Forum and then through the actual guidelines. I have Dan van der Wecken, who is the Sustainability Manager for the Consumer Goods Forum, sitting next to me, and if necessary, he will be able to help me out. So the Consumer Goods Forum and the Sustainability Pillar. First of all, the Consumer Goods Forum was founded 4 years ago as a global parity-based industry platform, bringing together retailers, manufacturers, and their partners along the value chain, and by now has 400 members, small and large companies and organizations representing about 70 countries. And these members employ more than 9 million people, and indirectly even 90 million. Combined sales are 2.5 trillion euros, which equals 3.3 trillion US dollars. The CGF is governed by a board of directors consisting of 25 CEOs from the retail side. You have them on your screen now, and equally 25 CEOs on the manufacturer side, and you have them on your screens now. The work of CGF is focused around 4 strategic pillars, ranging from sustainability to product safety, health and wellness, end-to-end value chain, knowledge sharing, and people development. And the sustainability pillar comprises of 4 main building blocks: climate change, a common language, which includes finished projects like the Global Packaging Project and the Glossary. There is a pillar on waste, and there is the Global Social Compliance Program. But by far the biggest building block is actually climate change, and this one includes deforestation, refrigeration, and product carbon measurement. And today we are talking about the deforestation part, and in particular about soy. In 2010, the CGF board adopted a resolution on deforestation with the goal to achieve zero net deforestation by 2020 in their respective businesses. This has to be achieved through individual company initiatives and by working collectively in partnerships. And therefore we have developed strategies and action plans for 4 of the key commodities involved in our supply chains, and thereby closely working together with other stakeholders like NGOs, development banks, governments, trade associations, and others. And the four commodities being palm oil, beef, paper and board, and yes, soy. You see them listed here. And per commodity, we have agreed on some objectives for 2014, 2015. And for instance, for soya, that means that we want to implement the Soy Sustainable Sourcing Guidelines across the wider CGF community. And our webinar of today is part of that objective. So moving on to the soy sourcing guidelines, I will now try to guide you through those guidelines, discussing the approach, the scope, the geography, verification mechanisms, KPIs, and next steps. This is the overview. Objective is to ensure that the sourcing of soy does not contribute to deforestation, and remember that is for 2020. And to that end, we have developed a set of soy sustainable sourcing guidelines in close cooperation with our stakeholders along the soy value chain. The guidelines have been approved by the CGF board. This was in June of this year. And all member companies are encouraged to implement them. The next step will include continuous engagement with the stakeholders, implement the guidelines, implement measurements to see if we are meeting our objectives, and to report to the wider Consumer Goods Forum's membership. Let me start with an overview of the approach. And essentially, for sourcing deforestation-free soy, we recommend individual companies to conduct a materiality assessment to determine the appropriate scope of the soy sourcing policy, to develop soy sourcing policies that seek transparency along the supply chain and support the production of deforestation-free soy, disclose company policies, goals, and progress that support deforestation-free soy in their individual supply chains, and individual companies may set out their own requirements, which may include higher standards than the minimum recommended in these guidelines. So first of all, to assess the materiality, what we mean is that it is up to each company to understand how important soy in the supply chain of their products is. Therefore, for them to make an assessment on which issues to start to work. Transparency along the supply chain is necessary to make sure that you know where the soy in your product is coming from, so that you can understand whether deforestation was involved or not. And then, of course, to disclose whatever the work is that you have done. Very importantly for me, it is the fact that individual companies may set out their requirements, and these requirements may very well be a higher standard than the minimum recommended in the guidelines. That is really up to each individual company. To be able to establish the scope, let's first look at which supply chains are involved with soy. By far the most important usage of soy is not in human food but in feed, fed to animals that then will produce the products that a lot of our companies are producing or selling. So the categories and scope here are those of animal-derived products. Could be poultry, pork, dairy, beef, egg, or fish. But it is important to remember that in none of these products soy can actually be found. Again, it is the feed fed to the animals that produced these products. That is different from the next group that is listed here. products in which soy is actually used. That could be cooking oil or margarines, soy milk. Soy can be used fresh, and in that case at times is called edamame. It can be used for soya sauce. It can be made into bean curd, also known as tofu. It can be soya oil. Not listed in our document, but certainly also used that soy meal is used as a filler in certain products, and for instance in sausages. Then made from soy, there are all kinds of additives, glycerides, lecithin, tocopherols, and probably a lot of other products. So this, in other words, this list that we have here on screen is not extensive. Usually retailers, in determining the scope that they need to deal with, will apply all this to their private label brands, so their own brands. In writing the document, we had extensive discussions what exactly was covered by a resolution on deforestation. We have pledged to help achieve this zero net deforestation, and what we decided that it would mean was to prohibit production on land with high conservation value and high carbon stock, and then to decide that the conversion cutoff date would be not later than 2009. In other words, any land that was converted after the cutoff date would be a no-go area for the source of soy. High conservation value areas, not exactly the same as forests, but this is what we thought was meant with deforestation. And we then decided that the forests, savanna and grasslands in South America were currently at the greatest risk from soy production, and therefore the primary focus would be on those areas, including the Amazon, the Cerrado, the Atlantic forest, the Gran Chaco, and the Chiquitano. This list may not be the final and complete list, therefore it will be reviewed periodically by the CGF Soy Working Group, and it will be updated if any other region or any other criteria needs to be included in the risk criteria and classifications. The considerations that we've used for selecting these high priority regions, or in other words the high conservation value areas, include presence of tropical forests or high conservation value areas, risk of deforestation due to soy, input from, and we've used input from relevant stakeholders, NGOs, producers, but, and I repeat that, decided to include grassland with high biodiversity value. Now, how do you verify that the soy that you are sourcing meets the criteria in the guidelines? There are actually a range of verification mechanisms that can be used to increasingly reduce the risk of sourcing soy contributing to deforestation. And some of the standards that can be used for that are listed in the guidelines and therefore also listed on this slide. The minimum recommended in the guideline is the ISCC, which verifies for legality and reducing the risk of soy contributing to deforestation. We have to add here that the ISCC Plus standard which allows ISCC units to extend certification to food and feed products, and which also includes an option for non-genetically modified soy, has not yet been reviewed by independent benchmarking studies such as ITC. That will happen, and as soon as we have those results, this list will be updated, including the option of adding other standards. The second standard listed on this slide is ProTerra, which covers the verification of legality, reducing the risk of soy contributing to deforestation, and a ban on genetically modified soy. So in particular, if that is of interest to your company, that is an important standard to look at. And then there is RTRS, which covers the verification of legality, the reduction of the risk of soy contributing to deforestation. It accommodates a requirement for non-genetically modified soy, and it has a multi-stakeholder governance with full certification requirements. So these three mechanisms are sufficient to verify low risk of soy contributing to deforestation as defined by the Forum Sourcing Guidelines, and they meet the goal of helping to achieve zero net deforestation set forth in the CGF resolution. And again, this list will be updated as soon as more information is available to our working group. We then get to the KPIs, or in other words, the measurement. Because if we don't measure, there's no way that we can report on our progress. We will support measurement and reporting by introducing a reporting framework for the membership of the Consumer Goods Forum, and the KPIs you can see listed here. First of all, the number of forum members for which the sourcing of soy is relevant. Remember, first of all, of course, soy needs to be part of your product's supply chain. But secondly, at the moment, we've identified areas in South America as high risk, and not all companies may get their soy from South America. More importantly, the second KPI indicates the percentage of soy directly sourced from HCVs and high carbon stock lands in South America, with the obvious aim that this percentage is zero. And that's how we plan to measure the results of implementation of these guidelines. So what are the next steps we are taking? First of all, we published the guidelines on the Consumer Goods Forum's websites. We've announced its publication, sent it to over 1,700 sustainability contacts of the Consumer Goods Forum. We've utilized social media to announce its publication. We've organized this webinar. We will also send out a questionnaire to the Consumer Goods Forum members on their progress in implementing the guidelines, but I suppose also as a subtle reminder that actually these guidelines are there and need to be used. We'll organize a second webinar, and maybe even more importantly, with our own soy network, we will organize a third workshop. We've already held two to be able to develop these guidelines. We will organize a third one early 2015 when the ITC benchmark has been completed. So in other words, we hope by that time to have more information from the work of ITC on the benchmarking of various mechanisms for the verification of sustainable soy. And when we have the results, that will enable us to review the guidelines as they are today, maybe change them, improve them, which then hopefully will also lead to the acceleration of the implementation of these guidelines. So the benchmark study, ITC has been asked to do a full soy standards benchmark, taking into account crucial aspects of the levels of assurance, and more importantly, we hope then, after that work is done, to have consensus about equivalence and acceptability of standards, other standards than the ones mentioned on our list. There's a lot of background. There was a lot of background noise, but it's gone again. So to seek a consensus about acceptability of standards, which will then again help make a more informed decision making of all involved. Also, KPMG has been working on a soy reporting ladder, which will be published and rolled out soon. The exact date not known yet, including also a soy reporting guidance, which also needs seeking the agreement on the reporting boundaries. And in line with the other key commodities for the Consumer Goods Forum, we will set up a reporting framework and probably also some webinars to inform everyone on this framework. Then, pending board agreement, we hope to be able to report on the soy footprint for the wider Consumer Goods Forum's membership. I suppose this is a good time to ask if anyone has any questions. Muting you now all, but please can all hear what the questions are. Well, there don't seem to be any questions. I also do not see any written questions.
The Welsh has never sort of been that gracious before. There is.
In any case, if you want to learn more or even join the Consumer Goods Forum, on your screen now you see some ways to contact. There are questions now. Can you tell us more KPMG guidance?
Well, KPMG guidance, because we found that defining a soy footprint is quite complicated and different per company. So KPMG is working on a draft reporting guidance document, setting out boundaries, ways to report, etc. It's still under development. It will be discussed during the upcoming Sustainability Steering Group meeting in a few weeks' time. If it's going to be rolled out, then you will be informed and it will be on our website.
Okay. And the second question, can you ask everyone to mute themselves, please? Yes, so if you're not speaking, please mute. But if there are no other questions, we actually get towards the end of the webinar. And I'll wait for some more minutes. There is a question. Okay, the question is, do you have average needs of soy per kilogram of beef, pork, and egg? Some so-called conversion rates do exist. In particular, there is a Dutch report stating those, probably specifically for the Dutch situation. I wouldn't know how international that was. I can imagine that certain animals are fed in a different way depending on the local situations. I would be happy to share that by email to all the participants. It's coming from LEI, which is part of the Wageningen University in the Netherlands. So yes, conversion rates exist. I'm quite convinced that KPMG will work with those as well. So they will be, at the end of the day, in the KPMG guidelines, but we can circulate them beforehand.
Hello, this is Agustin from RTRS. And I would like to say that there is in the RTRS there is a public tool called Soy Print Calculator, and there anyone can enter and input their consumptions of different products to have a rough estimation on the use of soy. So that could be a first helping tool.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Yes. I see no more questions. So again, if you want to learn more, on your screens you can find ways to contact us, and also this is a way to get in touch for other reasons with the Consumer Goods Forum. So having shown this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. We actually managed to get through it quite quickly. And hope this was helpful. Looking forward to your feedback. In any case, thank you again for your attention.